Sorry, I was late. We were, whatever. Okay.
You're here now.
Hi. Okay. So calling the meeting to order. This is the West Hartford Center Special Services District meeting, and we will start with a roll call. Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Billing-Smith?
Present.
Ms. Blanks?
Present.
Ms. Cantor?
Here.
Mr. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Davidoff?
Here.
Ms. Fay?
Present.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Winograd?
Here.
Mr. Zdanowitz?
Here.
Ms. Rifkin? And we have Mr. Spivak in for Mr. Morpurgo as an alternate.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. So we will, I don't think we have a public forum, but if, seeing there's nobody in the audience, but I'm sure we don't. Okay. We will then move on to 3, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the minutes from March 8th, 2022.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, the minutes are passed.
Madam Mayor, I also move adoption of the minutes from public hearing of 4/12/2022.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any objection? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. Okay, there are no petitions, no consent calendar, no receipt of communications. We will go to 7. Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the resolution to adopt the annual budget for fiscal year 2022 through 2023 in the imposition of a tax levy on each land use category thereafter.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there I don't know if we have a little summary or, I see I don't see the resolution, and I don't have my computer. No.
Here's a copy of the resolution.
Yeah, I didn't have it. Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, I'm assuming everybody has it in front of them, and we will, is there any discussion? Yes, this is the resolution to adopt the annual budget for the Special Services District. Yeah, no, this is not this is the Special Services. I'm happy to pass that around. Yeah.
I remember we talked about this last time. Thank you.
Mr. Davidoff?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will support the budget for the Special Services District. The council met in a workshop to discuss the various revenue and expenses of the district, and the numbers and the items in the budget accurately reflect the needs to make the district what it is, and for those reasons I'll be supporting it.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Yes. go
Madam
ahead.
Mayor, I would also move adoption and that when we take this, but be taken by roll.
Thank you. This was also the subject of a public hearing, and again, discussed with the district. All right, so we can do a roll call. Ms. LeBreau?
Ms. Billing-Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Blanks?
Yes.
Ms. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff?
Yes.
Ms. Fay?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Winograd?
Yes.
Mr. Zdanowitz?
Yes.
Ms. Rifkin? And Mr. Spivak?
Yes.
It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. LeBreau. Thank you all. We have no new business, no consent calendar. I don't think there are any staff reports, Mr. Lopez, and no executive session, Ms. Attorney Brano, no. And with that,
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn the Special Services.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, we are now adjourned. Thank you very much, and again, I apologize for being late, and thank you very much, Ms. Rifkin and Mr. Spivak, for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so we will see you back here at 7:30 for council. Okay? All right, I am calling to order the Monday, April 25th, 7:30 PM Town Council meeting, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. LeBrun.
Ms. Billing-Smith?
Present.
Ms. Blanks?
Present.
Ms. Cantor?
Here.
Mr. Cortez?
Here.
Mr. Davidoff?
Here.
Ms. Fay?
Present.
Mr. Sweeney? Mr. Winograd?
Here.
And Mr. Zadanowitz?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. We're going to start with a proclamation, and this is a proclamation on this is the Mental Health Week and National Prevention Month. And so this will be presented to will be shared with our Director of Social Services, but it is for everyone to. So whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being, and whereas all Americans experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives, and whereas all Connecticut residents have experienced the effects of isolation, stress, and possibly more serious mental health and substance abuse challenges as a result of the coronavirus pandemic and perpetual experiences of systemic oppression and social injustice, and whereas prevention and intervention are effective ways to reduce the burden of mental health and substance use conditions, and whereas National Prevention Week and National Mental Health Month are held each year during May to develop and strengthen the community, school, and family bonds that protect young people from substance use, and to promote community mental health overall, and whereas the town of West Hartford celebrates National Prevention Week with activities during the week of May 8th through May 14th to prevent substance abuse and promote mental health and wellness, and May is National Mental Health Month. And whereas the West Hartford Prevention Partnership is organizing a wellness resource fair on Saturday, April 30th at Charter Oak International Academy to connect the community with resources focused on mental health, substance abuse and gambling prevention, intervention and treatment, as well as providing QPR, suicide prevention, and Narcan administration training to the community to help prevent tragedy and loss. And whereas the National Take Back Day will also be held on the same day and location to provide a safe, convenient, and responsible way to dispose of unused or expired prescription drugs in our community. And whereas the town of West Hartford, through the Department of Leisure Services and Social Services, the West Hartford Prevention Council, West Hartford Bloomfield Health District, West Hartford Prevention Partnership, West Hartford Public Library, West Hartford Police Department, West Hartford Board of Education, the Community of Concern, and the Bridge Family Center, as well as the town's youth services Bureau, along with individuals and the general public, will continue to collaborate on year-round prevention efforts. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on behalf of the Town Council of West Hartford and the residents of West Hartford, I, Mayor Sherry G. Cantor, do hereby proclaim May as West Hartford Mental Health Month and the week of May 8th through May 14th, 2022 as West Hartford Prevention Week, and support the efforts of our local government, community groups, and residents to increase public awareness and the importance of substance use prevention and positive mental health during Prevention Week, Mental Health Month, and all year long. So thank you all very much, and so important. All right, Mr. Sweeney, let's go now to 7. We have a suspense item.
Madam Mayor, without objection, I move that we suspend the rules for the purpose of opening the agenda to add a resolution providing for the 2-year phase-in of the October 1st, 2021 property reevaluation as item 7AA.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and this is to add the suspense item to the agenda. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the ordinance concerning appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022.
Second.
I also move item B, an ordinance deauthorizing $3 million for the projects authorized in the capital improvement program for fiscal year 22 to 23.
Second. Second.
Madam Mayor, I also move adoption of the ordinance concerning the appropriations to and in the capital improvement fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022.
Second.
Madam Mayor, I also move adoption of the resolution concerning the tax levy on the list of October 1st, 2021.
Second.
And in the spirit for conversation for the new folks on the council, we're moving to have this as all the budget items as one conversation, and we would move for a vote on these items after the debate on all 5 items subsequently.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. So yes, as traditionally, we move those items together, and discuss them together as they all impact each other, but then we will take a roll call vote on each of those items separately. Motion's been made, and now it's time for discussion, and I'm guessing there will be some discussion. So, Mr. Sweeney, why don't we, as Chair of Finance, I'm going to start with you, and then go to.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. I didn't know if the town manager wanted to go over the first.
That's a good point. Why don't we start with the town manager, just to review the adjustments that you had received from council
Thank you,
members.
Madam Mayor, and good evening, Town Council. We started this budget process together 7 weeks ago, and we presented our initial budget that called for a 1.85% increase in spending for the town, a 3.29% increase in spending for the Board of Education, and a 9.67% increase in capital financing spending. Since then, the Town Council has held 4 budget workshops and 2 public hearings, spending countless hours over these 7 weeks working with all of our directors, crafting a final budget that builds on our successes, addresses emerging challenges like revaluation, inflation, supply chain issues, and maintaining, above all else, our core services. This evening, our final budget has been reduced by a total of $812,000. These reductions can be found in 4 primary categories. Number 1, the Board of Education. The Board of Education adopted their budget on April 5th and reduced the superintendent's proposed budget by $141,000. The second category could be found in a reduction in town wages and salaries of $163,592. This included eliminating open or newly requested positions and delaying the start date for certain positions from a July 1st start date to a January 1st start date. I'm pleased that the Assistant Director of Social Services will be a position we will fill immediately to help address the social and emotional needs of our community, particularly as we are coming out of the pandemic. We will use ARPA to fund half the year and then move the rest of the salary into the general fund effective January 1st. We've also reduced operating expenses by $142,000. This includes reducing a $100,000 consulting fee in the community development and that consulting fee was going to be used for the townwide vehicle crash study that was recommended by our Plan of Conservation and Development, and we'll use ARPA funds to make sure that we do proceed with that study this year. We'll also eliminate a $40,000 contingency fund for our direct haul option for recycled materials. And our 4th category is reducing the general fund contribution of $376,000 and replacing that with CNRE fund balance. So that totals the $812,000 that is being reduced with this budget, and happy to answer any questions that the council had as part of your discussion.
Okay, so before we go into our individual comments, these were a variety of sources of input, but, and we asked that we provide that after our last workshop by Wednesday or Thursday, so you could process the impact of those. So, thank you very much. It was a good summary. Any questions for the town manager before we? Okay, now we'll go to Mr. Sweeney. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and Mr. Lepa, thank you for that presentation, and thank you for you and your entire teams, that everyone is here, for all the work that you all put in through the multiple meetings that we had and the 2 public hearings. It was great to see the team work together and also listen to the requests of the town council, particularly thank you for the special meeting on reval. I think that was super helpful, particularly to what is before us here today. So I've been trying to think about what this budget means, and to me, this budget is about protecting today's taxpayers while ensuring opportunity for tomorrow's residents, homeowners, and businesses. And what do I mean by that? So throughout this process, we all were hearing from residents, businesses, people who are looking at what was coming down in regards to reval and how that was impacting them individually. And as we saw, each community was impacted separately. And that was one of the big problems that we had during this process was there wasn't one uniform, everyone is getting hit with a similar tax burden. Every place was different. And so what I think we were all better able to understand through the process was that there was something that we needed to do, but we also needed to ensure with the amount of opportunity that we have basically right in front of us, that we couldn't prolong that issue. And so I think today's budget, where we implement the phase-in at 75%, and then 25% in the following year, is a really good way for us to help people that are hurting right now in the best way that we can, and I think most importantly, responsibly for the future. The other, and how that plays into the rest of the investment that's in this budget, I think one of the major investments that this budget makes is preparing us for the future, whether it be on the educational side, but more importantly on our economic development team that we have here in town. While the state of the town is really strong, what we're seeing is we have a significant need in our town staff to help ensure that the growth that we have seen over the last year, which we are lucky as a community to have, has the support throughout the town. And I think Mr. Ledwith had made that argument throughout his presentations, and the rest of the team made that. I think this budget makes that investment, and I think how we prioritize, how we roll out the reevaluation also takes that into consideration. We need to make sure that we aren't hurting ourselves today, or protecting ourselves today and hurting ourselves tomorrow. I think what we see here in this budget and throughout the finance and budgeting process is that one of the things that we all talked about during COVID was how this town budgeted for the future. And I think this is this is another example where the council listened to the community, listened to the staff that is interacting with the businesses that are knocking on the door, right? That's something that we shouldn't undersell, is that our community has businesses that are looking to build right now, and we have to be prepared to do that in a reasonable and responsible way. And I think that we do that in this budget. I think the other big thing that I would highlight as well is that throughout the process, we also heard from our public safety. And again, this goes back to how we've budgeted in the past. We got through COVID because we properly funded our public safety over several years. What I think we also do in this budget is do that again. While we don't give public safety everything they wanted, because not everyone can get everything they wanted in their budget, we give them what we know are their priorities, and I think that is laid out very clearly in here. So we will continue to have the best police force and the best fire force in the state, and I think that we will continue to see that investment grow over time. But Madam Mayor, I'm really proud of how this council worked together, listened to the community, listened to the staff, and also listened to businesses of what they need in order to see our community grow at the steady clip that it's been growing at, but also preparing for the future in regards to rolling back our mill rate for further economic development here in town. So with that, Madam Mayor, I am, while this budget was not, it was very difficult to get to this number. I'm very pleased of where we came up, and I think that while there may be some disagreements on this, I think that we have a really good product here based on the environment that we're in. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Ms. Fay is also on the Finance Committee, and so I thought you, and being a senior person, you should go next.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. I agree with just about everything that Mr. Sweeney said. We did work very, very hard, and we did come to a pretty good place, but I know that we are very cautious with the COVID impacts, and I gotta say, our taxpayers have been affected very, very much by COVID as well. On a $300 million budget, I know it's very, very hard. That's both the Board of Ed and the town. It's very, very hard to isolate pieces, and everybody always wants to know, what would you cut? And that's a very difficult question. I prefer to come at it a little bit differently. So while we say that 80% of our budget is salary and benefits, so that's about $240 million out of the 300, if you will, that $60 million is somewhat discretionary. So it's frustrating to throw up our hands every year that we do this and say, oh, well, it's salaries and benefits, we can't do anything. Oh, well, union negotiations, we can't do anything. Oh, well. I am concerned for the taxpayers. I am concerned for the people who have gotten sticker shock with the revaluations. It's good news, bad news. Your house has increased in value. That's a very good thing. West Hartford is certainly a desirable community. We all know that. That's why we live here and why we love it. But separating out that, our budget has been creeping up since I've been on the council, and the only year that we were able to pass a flat budget was my first year. And I'm very, very proud of that. We haven't done it since, nor do I think we've done it before. I asked Mr. Town Manager a very pointed question, because out of that $60 million in discretionary money, I asked him what would have to be, what the reduction would have to be to get to a zero tax increase. And he told me we'd have to cut it by about $12 million. So I think there is ways that we can get to that number, and I think we owe it to our taxpayers. For example, one pet peeve that I have, being an insurance professional, is our workers' comp program, where every year I mention that we pay 100% of workers' comp benefits out. We're the norm everywhere I've ever been, and being a workers' comp financial underwriter, it's 70%, and that costs us about $1.5 million. So right there, I think that's something that we should be going after. The other thing was, we did pass a very large tax abatement for a very prominent developer in our town who's doing the property on the corner of Prospect and Park Avenue. It's a very large project. We have given him 100% tax abatement in the first 5 years and 50% in years 6 through 10. First time ever. I certainly did not vote for that. I voted no on that. And I think we have to consider the residents before we do some of these tax abatements, because the residents have not gotten a fair shake on this, in my opinion. There's another category that I'm just going to mention, because I know it's a very difficult one. It's in the Board of Ed budget, and this is not a moral statement by any stretch at all. And I know I'm going to get punished for saying this, but our open choice program, we have 200 children who go to that. And again, this is not a debate about whether we should have open choice children or not. I think every child deserves an excellent education, and if I had my way, everybody would have the same level of education countrywide that we have here in West Hartford. But the question to me is, who pays for that? And each one of these children, our costs are approaching $20,000 a student in West Hartford, and we get reimbursed $4,000. Now, that's a choice, and I'm not questioning the choice at all. I'm just saying that's another $16,000 per student that West Hartford taxpayers pick up the tab for. And I don't know if they know that, but they do now. And I think that's something that should be more transparent. And again, it's this unfunded state mandate. The state should be fully reimbursing us for every child that we educate. I've always heard follow the money with kids, but this is not the case because it's 20% of what it costs to educate a child that we are reimbursed for. So I bring these up because there are places that we can do better. There are places in the budget that we can really work hard to reduce. Once we get a budget, every raise, every new person we put in, every, expense, it's locked in and it rolls forward. So that's why I'm so concerned about budget creep, and I have been for the 3 terms that I've been here. We heard testimony from Attorney Witt. To me, he was very compelling. He talked about many people. He's a real estate closing attorney, and he talked about the many people who come through his office, seniors predominantly, and young families who can no longer afford to live in West Hartford because of our property taxes. We are approaching costs of what I don't consider peer communities. We are a terrific, outstanding community. There's no doubt about that. And our residents request and ask for a high level of services, and we provide them. But I just see some things that I wish we were a little bit more diligent on. Those are just examples. There are certainly others, but I wanted to bring those to light because I really am concerned about the people in Elmwood who've gotten the brunt of the revaluation. Again, it's a good thing their prices of their homes increased, but so did their taxes. So in terms of the phase-in, I'm not opposed entirely to a phase-in. I think I'd rather see the Band-Aid ripped off. I don't think the savings from phasing it in are tremendous to the taxpayer. And I would like to see, as prices change, we don't know if we're on a bubble or not now. I have no idea. But I want the right to reevaluate our properties should there be a drastic change, upwards or downwards, so that we can take a look at that and try with an eye towards giving our taxpayers some relief. So those are my comments. I would like nothing more than to say yes to a budget and approve it unanimously. I think our taxpayers are hurting just as much as everybody else, our businesses from COVID, and I think we have to work harder on their behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Mr. Winograd, would you like
Yes,
to go?
thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to Rick Ledwith and Peter Privatera and Joe Deckers, and as particular for your work for the whole entire budget. And Joe, you had a lot more work this time around. We picked on you a lot. And as chair of the committee, a particular shout out to our Public Works Facilities and Sustainability team of John Phillips, Robert Palmer, Catherine DeVinny, and the rest of our excellent staff of public servants who show their passion and dedication to our town every single day. Talking about Public Works, we have some exciting plans coming up for Public Works for the future, and really their accomplishments in the past are worth bragging about. Going through their resume in the past year alone, just one division, the parking one, which people even forget existed, came out and supported outside dining, library curb pickup, the farmer's market, summer in the square, harvest fair, the election work, the Hanukkah on Ice, the parking, the holiday stroll, the mitten run, Pride, and many other programs. They do a fantastic job. This year, the department is working towards design and construction of a new material services center, the dump, which needs so much updating, and there's some really exciting things happening there. To better serve the public, improve efficiency, and support waste reduction and separation activities. All these, show up in the budget, but for a department like Public Works, it's exciting stuff, and we're going to see those impacts. Our facilities department is going to continue its efforts to make the town as energy efficient as possible while maintaining the beauty and efficiency of buildings like this one. And throughout the work of both departments, sustainability is incorporated into all decisions. Last year's energy conservation achievements are only the beginning, but we achieved 100% offset of electricity with green E renewable energy credit purchases and achieved silver level certification with the Sustainable Connecticut program, which is actually right up behind me. There's our sign, so I don't know if they can focus right behind me and see the award. There's a blank there. We've got the bronze and silver. We got to keep working on it. Overall in this budget, considering the inflationary and supply side challenges, comparisons to other municipalities and what they're facing, and the continuing impact of the pandemic, I believe that the spending increases are reasonable and prudent. It also helps significantly that thanks to the mayor's leadership on our pension obligation bonds, the pension is finally not the driver it has been in the past. Throughout this process, I have not heard really any suggestions, a few tonight, but I've not heard any suggestions, reasonable or otherwise, about things that would reduce our spending in any kind of significant way. We continue to be a well-run, efficient, and high-service community. I will address the hard part of this budget, which is really the distributive aspects of our reval. But first, I do want to touch on a couple of points raised by Councilor Fay. The workers' comp program, it is a collectively bargained provision. It is in our contracts. It is in our police contract, I believe, which we voted in favor of unanimously. And everybody likes to back the blue, but it also involves actually backing our police officers who are in danger, as well as our fire, and frankly, all of our employees. We can certainly vote against contracts, but that's in there because we voted for it. It's not anything imposed on us. The tax abatement, it's true, we did, for the first time, give a tax abatement for the one park project. I'll remind people that was a non-revenue producing facility currently. It was a nonprofit run by the nuns. After approval, languished on the vine for a few years, collecting no taxes because the original plan was not developable. So we could have said no and left it the way it is and collected no taxes, or we could be a little bit innovative and have it happen, let the nuns actually stay in their place, which has worked out very well, and create not only a vibrant area, a community building, a community growing building for that neighborhood, but also get tax revenue after a few years. And part of those, the abatement period is construction period. So it wouldn't have been at a full value anyway. Again, yes, there was disagreement on that one. Absolutely true that there were no votes on that. But certainly the majority, we stand by that decision. And, good thing we did, because we will be seeing that revenue coming, as well as additional residents. Ms. Fay, you said you're going to be attacked for criticizing open choice, and you're right. The open choice program is what makes West Hartford great. And it's really easy to pick out and say you're not opposing it, but you just want people to let people know. But we're in a budget hearing, and we're talking about ways we can cut our budget. So if you want to cut that, you can propose it. I mean, actually, it's a little inappropriate for us to be talking about the school budget because we don't control it. We actually don't have any say. We could cut the budget of the schools more and sort of hope that that's where they cut. I suspect that isn't where they would cut. But that program is one of the things that makes this town what it is. I hate to see it challenged. And I will say on the money, the cost of students isn't necessarily the marginal cost. So we have a cost that we take the entire cost of a budget, divide it by the number of students, and you have an amount. But the marginal cost of adding students is not that. When you have classrooms that are not full, you can take extra students without hiring extra teachers or opening up new buildings or anything else. We, in fact, have plenty of room for them. And I'm, again, I'm very proud of that program. I will certainly fight to defend that program. And I think most people in town share that view. But getting on to what was really the hard part of this budget was on the revenue side. And it's really not on the totals, but on the distribution. The problem is an unfair and regressive property tax system, which harms our state in many ways. It encourages sprawl for ex-urban towns chasing revenues. It punishes urban areas, although I do think the governor's car tax limit will help a bit as long as it is fully funded, and I hope it is, and give some relief to towns, where the mill rate is higher and people are paying more for the same car. That certainly would help if the state comes up with that money. And for a town like ours, it limits our flexibility. There's actually a poll out just today by Sacred Heart University that showed that the property tax was considered the least fair of our state's three major sources of revenue. I certainly agree with that view. We can do better, and we should be urging solutions at the state level. I believe the property tax needs to be made more progressive, with less expensive homes taxed at a lower mill rate, and I would urge everyone to contact their legislators in support of such reform. However, this budget must conform with current laws, and it is at least an effort to mitigate the harm to owners of our most affordable homes. Since these homes gained the most this year in value, the owners and their tenants, in many cases, will now need to pay higher taxes on those higher amounts. I don't know how you can look at the heat map we all saw showing the biggest increases in Elmwood, the Park Road area, much of KP, and the northeast corner, and not make at least some effort to slow down that increase. Even though the result is a slightly higher mill rate for the year than if we had simply let reval go through all at once. The delay is temporary, but at least we can show some recognition of the problem. We can't do it all, but we can do something, and I think it's our obligation to try. And going forward, I believe we need to continue developing more housing options at both market rate and designated affordable. There is a direct link between a restricted housing supply and higher property values. We simply need more places to live in town. We need to seek additional revenue sources from changes to state law. The revenue from the NIPS now, we get the deposit on NIPS that we actually get money back. I think we got about $20,000 this year. That's a lot of NIPS. And cannabis sales, which will be a larger share. Those are steps in the right direction, but I think we need more options. And finally, to Ms. Fay's point, we certainly can look to reval early. As we discussed in committee, that is possible. I don't, we'd obviously want to look at the market and see whether it would do anything. Right now, it probably wouldn't. But we do have that option. We don't have to wait the full 5 years. And I absolutely agree that we should be looking at that every year. And to the extent that if this is a bubble, particularly a bubble on more affordable homes, and it breaks, we'll want to take sort of advantage of that and shift that burden. So I do think in the years to come, we have to look at that and decide whether or not, it would cost some money, but it may well be the best thing we can do to try to mitigate some of that harm. I'll be supporting this budget as a product of hard work and deep consideration of the impact of our decision. It wasn't easy, but it is the right thing to do. And lastly, again, I'd like to thank our staff for their work on this project, our mayor for her tireless efforts, dedication, and leadership, and for the rest of my council colleagues for their commitment to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Ms. Fay asked to respond to a couple of your, and the back and forth we don't usually do on budget night because we know we're going to disagree and we could never end sometimes. And sometimes we have to get it adopted by a certain time. But Ms. Fay, if you would like to say a few words.
Yeah, just really briefly, please. I feel if I mention 5 times in somebody's speech, I need to say something. I bring up the open choice program. As I said, I do not feel this way, and I said that very clearly. I wish everybody had the value of education that we give our children here in West Hartford, and I mean that. My mother's a teacher, my families are teachers, they're educators. I know how hard they work. As I was talking to people about the budget, nobody realized there was that gap. So I would prefer to call it an unfunded mandate rather than something that we want to do about. I was not suggesting that we want to not send children here or have that program by any stretch, but I just think, for the record, it needs to be established that there's a gap, and our taxpayers are funding that gap to the tune of $14,000 a child. That was my only point, because I think it's fair to be transparent and open. Regarding the other things that you brought up about the tax abatement, it's water under the bridge. It's been decided. Certainly, I like to see development in town, positive development for sure. So I'm not against that project whatsoever. But seeing the demand that we have for our properties and the economic development that we have, I just didn't feel a tax abatement, especially for 10 years. We're really not going to see anything until the 11th year. I thought was a lot to put on our taxpayers' shoulders, and that's what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about the finances purely. And then in terms of the workers' comp on the police contract, yes, we did all vote for that. I agree with that 100%, because I believe, like, backing the blue means that we have to take care of them, and the fire and first responders too. However, we don't negotiate the contracts, and we have to rely on the people who do that for us. And I bring this up every time. And I don't think it's not taking care of our first responders. It's the way the industry works, and I think 100% compensation for workers' comp is over and above, and it costs us $1.5 million. So again, I'm just coming at this from finance. There's no value judgment. There's no moral judgment in my statements, and I hope that they are taken as such, because that is what I mean and what my heart is telling me. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fay. Mr. Zadanos, would you like to go?
Guess I'm ready, huh? So okay, we'll do the little ping pong here. Well, I don't want to get in the middle of this, but just so I'm just so close to it on the Board of Ed and the open choice. It is a state legislative piece. It has nothing to do with even our Board of Ed or this town council. It is a state legislation. In fact, there has been new legislation for open choice that we are now getting $600,000 more this year than we have in previous years because of the state legislation. It changed. So I just make sure that you guys know that, and we have like 224 students. So it has nothing to do with anything that we can implement here in a Board of Ed as a town or even this body. So, but legislation has increased it by 600,000, just for edification. As this budget goes forward, we saw an increase in every section. 12.7 in tech, 15.1 in financial services, 9 in human resources, fire services 2.6, police department 4.5, community development 32.8, public works 4.5, facility services 12.8, leisure social services 4.7, library services 11.6, non-departmental minus 3.5, and capital financing 9.7. So we've seen an increase in everywhere, and I understand a lot of that has to do with positions that may or may not be there, and wages and salaries. I know how it works. And I know municipal is different than private sector, where you ask every department to cut by 10% or 3%. And I tell you, this year, the increase, the town, the 1.6 it's fairly reasonable. But that compounded, it really hurts, because the reval and everything going on, that is really, really going to hurt a lot of people. And we've said it here at the table, that I'm glad to see that those houses have increased. I mean, that's kind of it's an investment, right? It's one of your largest investments you make. However, it comes with a cost, and that is paying taxes. And we've also said at this table that the reval is 75-25. And I think everyone agrees that's what's being proposed, but it's not. It's 75 at the very minimum, 125%, plus next year's increase in this town budget. So it's not really, when we're talking, because you have to understand the people out there, we say 75-25, and we know, because we've had all these workshops. Well, our taxpayers hasn't really, they've had it on TV and such, but they really don't come up and show up at the table like they should. They show up on Facebook is where they show up. But so the reval is really 75, 125 plus, because we're going to go through this same thing next year, and there's going to be an increase potentially of maybe a small one again, but that's going to be put on that again. So it might be a 128, 129, and that's significant. You know, we pride ourselves on taking care of our residents, and I know everyone at this table wants to do that, but that rollout really has some devastating circumstances. What can a person do if they can't afford that 125 plus tax bill next year? Move, right? That's it. Save the additional money. But why? How do you save that additional money? You cut things at home, right? You do the right things. But what do we have now? We have inflation that we haven't seen in tens of years. Gas prices, we've got some relief from the state. But those are where every day, those people, that's every day. People are putting gas, they're buying milk, they're buying bread. Those prices have gone up. So inflation, reval, what are they going to do next year if inflation is still there? Those things, they rise quickly, go down very slowly. So I mentioned we are hurting ourselves for the future. That 125 plus, I don't know if all our residents understand that. I understand that we're looking for, to ease the burden on things because those sections in town have increased so significantly. But when they're sitting at their dinner table over the next year and that tax bill comes, and if they've financed and they're not paying their taxes and they have it gone through their bank's collecting now for more money in the future. So we are kind of hurting ourselves a little bit there. So I say that. Technology, we talked about technology too, and we talked about cutting maybe some positions, and we had some great presentations here about adding people to departments, and quite honestly, they all kind of made sense to me, right? We need this, we need that, and it kind of makes sense to me. But when you start putting them all together and all those numbers add up, at the end of the day, it's a larger increase. And I was thinking about it, and you know, I'm old enough to remember when technology was a real impact on businesses and such. I can remember going into our family business and we had ticker tapes, and you stuck them in for different customers, and they had holes in them, and that was how you did business back then. We didn't have a drive. It was a paper ticket that you put in that had different holes in it. And technology certainly has leaped from there, right? And that's supposed to eliminate jobs and paper, really, because I remember when computers printers first came out, dot matrix, and we're going to save a lot of paper. I don't think we ever really did that, and I don't know why, but it never really happened. I think we use more paper now than we ever have. But those technologies are supposed to help with your positions. And I would ask these departments, and I know you have done it, that somehow there's an app for that, right? There's an app for that. What can we do to support, I'll go back to my previous seat on the Board of Ed. If there was ever a budget item that came up for safety of our students or anything like that, no matter what it was, I was in favor of it because it was for the safety of the children and if it impacted the classroom. And if we can invest even in technology, and it would say we had a lot more technology in this budget, and that can help, I don't want to say eliminate jobs, but make jobs easier for people. I would be for that, and I would like to spend that type of money so that things go smoother in that technology. Now, do I have those answers? Do I know what they are? No, I don't. But that's what the good people that presented to us know how to do. And I think that's something that we should do. And then you mentioned negotiations in the unions and such. Again, my previous seat, I sat on a few, too, because it come up every 3 years, on negotiations for the teachers. Maybe it's something that we do in committee. Maybe so that, so we vote yes for that particular, that increase to their wages and such. But at least we have a finger on it and there's a pulse. And as I understand, we don't do that right now. Maybe it's something that we can. I don't know if town charter we can, but it would be something that we could potentially do going forward. I can't support the reval. I think we really have to talk about it, as I mentioned earlier, what it really is. It's a 75, 125 plus, and I think, I just think that's hard. I think Mary said, let's rip off the Band-Aid. I really think if this is what we're gonna do going forward, then I say we go full in, let people get used to it, it's there. They have to make those decisions, because that 125 plus, you have a mortgage at 10,000, that's going to hurt a little bit. Okay, so Just something to think about. Outside of that, I have no additional comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zdanowitz. Okay, Carol, Ms. Blanks, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for your leadership, the hard work that you give to this town and the president of this council. To my colleagues, this budget journey began right along with March Madness, and this budget was met with many different requests. It's been a journey, and it will soon conclude, but I am humbled to work with all of you, and it really is an honor to serve. And I want to thank Mr. Rick Ledwith for your leadership during this transition from our former town manager, Mr. Hart, and your continued leadership as you direct our town forward and navigating through challenges, variables associated with being in charge. Since I've known you, your style of leadership demonstrates grace and care, but firm and open, all of which I appreciate and admire. Because managing any town, but especially ours, is not a picnic in the park. Thank you for what you bring to the table. To our Chiefs of Public Safety, Chief Riddick and Chief Priest, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership among your staff, your assistant chiefs, and thank you to Mr. John Phillips, our Director of Public Works and Facilities. And a big thank you to Mrs. Amy Kraus, who took on that position right at the beginning of COVID, and she was in an acting position, so she wasn't even fully in the position when she took on that huge responsibility. To Mr. Pete Privatera, a huge thank you to you and your staff. And Mr. Joe Dakers, we go way back. Thank you, Joe, for your excellent work and your leadership, especially during this budget period. Mr. Dwayne Martin and all the other directors, assistants, and town staff, thank you. And thank you for the community residents that came out and spoke during this budget hearing. It's really important to be a part of this process, like some of my board colleagues stated. We don't have enough of you to come out, and we really would love to hear from you. Thank you for your budget proposals and advocating for your department needs, your continuous support for your staff, and informing this council of your ongoing challenges of managing department resources. This town continues to be the best place to live, according to niche.com, for the 5th year. It's not by accident or because motorists are driving through. It's because of the chosen leaders, all of you, who come to work every day to make this town safer, smarter, suitable to live, dine in, dine out, educate our children, and a great place to work, retire, or just simply visit. But we are painfully aware that we are far from perfection, and we cannot sit on our laurels because we have a tremendous amount of work to do in areas of equity, diversity, and inclusion, representation, collaboration with others who are different from us. We must continue to work together to address climate change, stormwater drainage, and affordable housing for everyone, not just a few. This is a work in progress, but nevertheless, we are addressing these issues. We began and will continue to address the transit-oriented development district, and I'm personally excited for this. I'm personally excited for the energy that it's going to bring to the Elmwood community. Since many feel that this is the other side of West Hartford. In a West Hartford Minute, it will be buzzing, alive, and with much excitement with activity and employment for our residents. This year was a challenge as a town councilor because it was a reval year, driven by high values in property sales, particularly in my community. I can identify with many homeowners because I too experienced this unexpected increase that can be burdensome to many on fixed incomes, single-family households, and business owners who are struggling, who are juggling and struggling with everything. I see you. I commend Mr. Privatera and staff for their tireless work of preparing, re-preparing, presenting, and educating us on the various options throughout the past couple of months. The many options. We as homeowners, business owners, and residents, we continue to balance and make modifications in our own budget, looking at what we can go without. But being an elected official, it is my job to be a good steward of government funds, your dollars. We must manage resources responsibly, and we have to strike a balance between what's reasonable, what are reasonable expenses and revenue. I believe this is a good budget. I believe it addressed many of our concerns. It's not perfect. It's a work in progress. But I do believe that it addressed many of the concerns of the residents, the town staff who've worked so hard, and the business owners. So I do plan to support by voting in favor. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Mr. Cortez, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Blanks. Hard act to follow, because I can, I can relate to, a lot of stuff you said. For those of you guys that have been on my journey the past couple of years, I'm a visual person, and this is important of how I'm thinking. This is how my brain works. I'm kind of all over the place trying to take this in right now, because it's a big deal. As Ms. Billing-Smith has said, we are on the other side now, and it's it's 7 weeks of these binders, and we've only skimmed the surface. There's more to it. So coming in brand new, there's a lot that, we've missed that we didn't sit on. We get to sit on moving forward. First of all, I want to thank all the town staff, town manager, directors and managers that spoke and presented their budgets. It's been a learning experience. So this is the best option presented, what we have here. My question is this the best option for our town? It should be our responsibility to invest in our community. We've listened to all the departments present their budgets. There was a common theme, which is, what's driving our budget. When we're looking at 300 million, we're really debating about just over 100 million, because there's that 200 or something million that's driving that budget, with the salary, with the wages, pensions, and, some unfunded mandates. There's different little things that, legislation just comes up and we got to do it. We got to pay. So it takes away from putting back into the community, and that's hard to that's a hard pill to swallow sitting up here. Where do we find this money? And it's great to see that some of these departments knew how to access grants and work very hard, not leaving money on the table. That being said, the other departments were forced of, what we're great at. We're great at doing more with less. But by doing so, who or what are we leaving behind? And that's what we got to ask ourselves, I got a military background, worked in corrections, did a lot of team stuff, and you're only as fast as your slowest runner, and we have to approach this budget as that. We're only as fast as our slowest runner. When I moved into West Hartford, I bought my first home at 21. Growing up, I didn't think I would see the age of 21. So we have these discussions. What do we tell our future self? What does my future self tells, young me, back 20, 19, 18 years old? This was the American dream for me, and it was possible to do so. It would not be possible now in today's market. It would not be possible. We're looking at inflation at the highest inflation in 40 years. So, highest inflation in my lifetime that I've seen. I'm 45. So I would have to tell my younger self, like, you're gonna have to hold on. You're gonna have to hold on. And it's life and death, for some people, when we're talking about that, it's do I get to eat another meal, so that's why I struggle with the phase-in option, put numbers to it, I'm missing something on this phase-in option, because it's got to be good. There's something I'm missing, right? And I'm reading this completely wrong. But if we put, simple numbers, right? You're paying $7,500 a year on taxes. Now your taxes go up to $10,000. We're going to give you a break, and you're going to pay $7,500 this year. But next year, you're going to have to pay $12,500. So you could barely afford that $10,000, and we're helping you out. But what next year? So if you are, as Ms. Cantor told me, and her husband saying, paycheck to almost paycheck. Next year, you might not be in West Hartford. You might have to put your house on the market. You might have to, and there might be a small number there, and the other piece is the surprise, the information. How are we getting information out to people? A lot of people are not aware. And when they see that, their taxes hasn't changed, they might not be aware of that 125% plus that they're paying next year. That might come as a shock, because they don't know where to access information or, participate in the meetings. It's going to be a surprise, and that's hard. So year after year, I've seen pretty much the same theme here. And like I said, what drives it is pension, salaries, it's that $200+ million is what's driving this budget. And next year, I can tell you that we're going to be sitting right here, and we're going to be debating about just over $100 million again, another due to increases from that. So how do we fix that? As far as suggestions, I've had suggestions, and I'm new, that's why this is important for you to see that I'm new. I didn't know what I'm walking, how to frame today, I'm new. So I'm making suggestions, and it's always like, well, general statute states that we can't do that, or we can't do this. I agree with Ben, the way we do our mill rate is not equitable. It's not, and before the budget, I've had ideas about the mill rate. What can we do with the mill rate? Do we do a cap on seniors so they're not going beyond? Or do we adjust by home values, and is it fair, and how do we do that? But keeping this flat mill rate in our town, it's not equitable. Look at where we're at right now. And these are things that are done at the state level, That being said, at the state level, we had these great workshops, 7 weeks, everybody talking. I think our legislators should be here to hear our side, our high-level thinking, not behind closed doors, to see what we're struggling with, and maybe lead us. And and I get it. It's time. So I'm not trying to mandate, but it'd be good for them to see in person how we all feel. But suggestions I've reached out to not everybody here, but I've reached out to many, not just, the two to my left. I've been communicating, and I'm trying, and I'm learning, so it's hard. We have a responsibility to the 63,000 residents. And again, I ask, is this really the best we can do? And how do we fill the gaps? How do we fill the gaps of communication? How do we modernize some of our service, because we're behind some other towns, in that aspect, when they come in to do business in the town hall, that greeter, security, whatever you want to call that person, should be able to say, hey, listen, right here, you can go on a kiosk, a lot of information is right there, and guess what? You could do that from home, and how do we, approach the communities that don't have access to this technology? How do we make sure that they know what's going on? It's not a surprise. How do we know that they understand that letter that came in the mail? You know, they understood those numbers and how that's going to impact them, and it doesn't become a surprise 2 years from now. So I struggle. I'm going to wrap it up before I get lost in my paper. But it will be very hard for me to support this because, like I said, it's protecting ourselves today. We do that with that 7,500, with the 75%. But who are we hurting tomorrow when we move that 25%? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Ms. Billing-Smith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I echo Ms. Blanks with thank you for your leadership in taking us through this process. As Mr. Cortez has said, as a newbie to the group, it has been a learning curve, to say the least, but I appreciate everything and all your leadership and mentorship. I would like to first thank the Director of Financial Services, Mr. Prevotera, and his team for the work on this extensive budget. I come from a mother who was an accounting manager for a large city, so I know the work that you guys put into this. And I completely understand it. There was many nights that I did not have my mother home where she missed a basketball game, which was rare, but when it came to budget time, she wasn't in the stands. And I also want to thank Town Manager Ledwood for his work and leadership. It has been no easy feat. You have to do everything else and deal with getting this budget together with your staff, but is recognized and appreciated. Thank you all for walking us through every possible option to ensure myself, my colleagues, and the residents were informed with all of the crucial information. I believe we made the best possible choice for the residents to implement the phase-in, and am hopeful that the most impacted won't feel the huge burden of this unpredicted housing boom, which resulted in this unprecedented revaluation. I, like Ms. Blanks, I live on the other side of town, which is like the other side of town, right? And though I understand what you guys are saying with your numbers, I look at it as okay, this was the surprise. And now at least my family, which we are homeowners, all of us, and we are also landlords, have a moment to prepare for what happens next year. It puts me personally in a better situation and a mindset, knowing I have a moment to prepare, because when people get their tax bills in July, if we would have done the ripping of the Band-Aid, that would have been the surprise. And how many people could we have potentially have lost then? And not in a good way. Foreclosing on their homes, defaulting on loans and mortgages. So for me, I think it was the hardest thing to, we sat through it and we went over every single option, trying to come up with the best option. And I hope the residents of West Hartford know that each and every one of us took it seriously. Everyone at this table. So I support the revaluation and the phase-in because, again, I'm one of those people who is impacted by it. I also want to thank the directors and their departments for your tireless work and commitment to our town and residents. You continue to offer the best services to our residents, and you are the best in the state, hands down. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for continuing to work through these difficult economic periods. I want to touch specifically on the committee I chair and my directors, Ms. Helen Rubino-Turco and Interim Director of Library Services before we got our new Director of Library Services, Ms. Carol Waxman, and their staff for their leadership through COVID. Furthermore, the Leisure and Social Services Department has become, in my opinion, the most important service provider in our town. From COVID relief to the food bank to partnering for mental health organizations to obtaining various grants to offering affordable activities for our youth to starting the new building of our community center. Through Ms. Rubino-Turco's leadership, she has hired exemplary individuals who are efficient, customer service oriented, and committed to the well-being of our town. Further, the recognition of her strengths and weaknesses have resulted in advocating for an Assistant Director of Social Services to better serve our community in that realm. It's been so important. All of us have talked about it, not only at this table, but Board of Ed, how important our social services are and what is needed in this town. People are struggling, no matter what. No matter what we decide today, people are struggling. And to have this service is so imperative. And for her to recognize she couldn't do it all. And to have someone there who is going to be on top of it, I commend her for that. I also want to speak to her skill sets of negotiation and the movement on our new community center and the local contractor level, ensuring our community is engaged in the decision-making process. With that being said, I'll keep it short. I support this budget. I support everyone in this building and what they're trying to do. We know, and we know you can't have it all, and we wish you could. But at the same time, thank you for prioritizing what we needed as a town. When it comes to the revaluation and what you were saying, Mr. Cortez, about people being hit, we have to, and it is our responsibility to do the best job at communicating what is coming next. That is our responsibility as a council and as a town, and I hope that we do that to the best of our ability. So, with that being said, as I said, I support this budget. The directors and staff came to us understanding this budget season was much different than the previous, and they were willing and able to reprioritize their department and balance their needs with our taxpayers' needs without compromising our commitment to service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Billings-Smith. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Cortez, great minds think alike. I didn't have a lot of opportunity this weekend to prepare remarks, but I'll just wing it off my notes. This is the 15th time that I've done it around this table, and I did it 3 years over in Newington. So I've done it for about 1/3 of my lifetime. I've worked on a municipal budget. And sometimes you get things where everybody sitting around the table is very happy, and sometimes people aren't as happy as they are. But at the end of the day, I think we realize that we've done the best we could do, and we compromise, and we put in the hard work. At the end of the day, we say we did the best we could do, and it's a budget, it sets our priorities, and it's a roadmap for where we want to see our town move forward. With that said, it's customary to thank our leadership team, our town manager and his staff, our finance team, and their staff for demonstrating what we know and what we've been recognized for, and that is for performing budgets that are professional, that are honest, that are transparent, that tell the whole story. And it's just not the story it tells to us or to our community, but it tells the story to the rating agencies who provide us with bond funding. And it's not by accident that our community continues to earn a AAA bond rating. It's they recognize that West Hartford, even though we're not located in the Gold Coast of Connecticut, is a gold rated community, because we really take our financial and fiscal management priorities very seriously. This year, there's a superstar in our administration, and that would be Mr. Joe Dakers and his staff. Because the last thing anybody wants to do is have the assessor come through their property and show them things because maybe they didn't pull a permit or maybe they didn't disclose things accurately. But they did their best to value the properties in our community based on the data and the information that they had. And then they had to put that all together, meld it together, and come out with valuations, whether it be residential, business, personal property, commercial, and all those things. And it all shakes out into put it all in the mixing bowl, and it all comes out into a final product. And that was done with such professionalism. I, for one, heard no complaints from any resident or business entities about being treated unfairly or being discriminated against, and that speaks volumes, Mr. Dacre, so thank you very much. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mr. Sweeney as chairman of the Finance Committee for leading us through this. I think that the approach that we took this year, having the council as a whole go through the various town departments was an excellent idea to continue. We all heard the same story and had the same opportunities to comment on the various departments as to what their needs, their expenses, and what their revenue streams are. We all know that we have three major responsibilities, and zoning, which I love, and we have that responsibility. We have the responsibility of setting policy, ordinances for our community, and the third is setting the budget. And as residents, we're all equal residents here, it's probably one of our most difficult tasks to decide how much we're going to basically burden our residents to provide the services that we're going to do. But in the end, I think we do a really good job. One just has to look at the results that we get. Our education, which is more than 50% of our town budget, I would say ranks us top in the states, top in the nation. We constantly are being recognized by third parties for the results that we achieve with our students. And that's a result of parents, administrators, students, teachers, all being a separate leg of a chair and supporting that chair and keeping it steady. And this town has a commitment, and it's never wavered on this commitment, of not leaving any child behind. Regardless of where a child's ability is, we strive to make certain that each child reaches their highest potential, and we celebrate every small step and every large milestone. And I think that's a credit to our community, and that defines us as a community. Our public safety is often cited as why people want to live here. West Hartford is a very safe community. We know that when we pick up the telephone and we dial 911, you're not wondering, did I call someplace in rural America? No, you called right here at the dispatch center, and somebody will be in your home within minutes, whether it be a police officer, a firefighter, emergency medical personnel. Those things have shown us to save lives and has been quite responsive. And it's hard to put a dollar value on life, but we are very fortunate. And by being a safe community and a community that invests in public safety, it encourages other people to want to be here, to recreate here, to visit our restaurants, because they know that when they come to West Hartford, they will see a community that's that just makes them feel good to be out and about. And let's not forget the other services that we provide. Our senior centers, which is so crucial to the lives of our seniors and the ability to interact with people on a daily basis. It's so important, the socialization, to be able to do that. Our libraries, they were so key during COVID, and they provide so many resources for people, and the programming that they offer are just extensions of the tremendous assets that we have to provide our community. And I think, as somebody around the table already said, our recreational opportunities, whether you like to swim, golf, walk, play any type of sport, you can do that all in here in West Hartford, and you can do it in a sense where you can afford to do it. And I'm just going to digress for a moment. I did watch the budget approval for the Board of Education, and I'll just personally express my personal opinion. I thought they made a big mistake by removing the ARPA funds that was providing students to provide athletic sports at no charge for the next few years. I think that sports are very important for the socialization of the child, and with the financial effects of the pandemic, I think it was, in my opinion, the wrong decision. But I don't serve on the Board of Education, but it was something that I felt very strongly about when I watched this. So how did we get to where we are, and where are we going? Kudos to Mayor Cantor. Before I even got on this thing, I never heard of pension obligation bonds. She stuck it out. She implored us to do that. And this year, we're seeing for the first time the positive results of her persistence, her leadership to get us there. Because what are we seeing? We're seeing a pension fund that is fully funded, and we're not pouring additional millions of dollars into this budget, which would have been worse had that step not been taken. So for those who voted in favor of the pension obligation bonds, you can pat yourself on the back, because you really, really were very forward-thinking in that approach. grand list growth. We did see significant grand list growth. And that's another way that we're able to combat the effect of taxes on our taxpayers, is by growing the grand list. But we don't just say to anybody, we're just going to do willy-nilly. We have a plan. We want smart growth. We want growth that's environmentally friendly. We want things that's sensitive to our neighborhoods. When we decide zoning applications, we always make certain that it's in harmony with the character of the neighborhood. And we do have strict standards with respect to how things look and how things appear and how they'll operate, because we want to enhance our community, not diminish it. Now, the thing that was the most difficult, this particular budget, and it happens just every few years, is this reval. And it's, no matter how many times I've had a budget that had revaluation, it's very difficult to explain to the average person as to how it affects their tax bill, because everybody's property is so unique, and as to where the burden shifts. In this particular scenario, I watched 8 of my neighbors sell their properties for $70,000, $80,000 over asking price. I didn't move, and I remember having a conversation with Mr. Dickers. I said, you know what's going to happen? I guarantee you that my property is going to go up significantly as a result of my neighbors selling their properties for higher values. And guess what? Mine did. And then I confirmed it when I had a appraisal from a bank, and it went up significantly more. So I understand that my taxes under this proposed budget before the reval would be $1,000 more than they were this year, but I have to also step back and say, well, for the previous 5 years, was the property undervalued? And I don't know that answer. But I do know that what I get from the property taxes that I pay, it's something that I'm willing to do that. And even though we no longer have children in the school system, I think it's an investment in our community, and it's a way to pay back. Nobody wants to pay $1 more than they have to, me included, but I understand what I want in a community that I live in and the services I would like to have provided. As Ms. Blanks rightly pointed out, COVID in our health department response was phenomenal. And you asked somebody to come into work here as the new health director, and I think in week 1, we have a pandemic facing this new person, and they're probably saying, oh my goodness, I don't even know what's going to go on. But you know what? Stepped up to the challenge and provided us with amazing protocols, procedures, and you know what? We got through the majority of this pandemic, even though it still lingers. The loss of life wasn't as significant had we not had a professional in that position. Now, social services, and I think that this is something that I think touches everyone, because not everyone's in the same economic position. We've never, ever seen the needs with respect to mental health issues or crises that we're experiencing now, whether it be in children, whether it be in middle-aged people, whether it be in the elderly. Everybody has felt isolated. Everybody has had different stresses. But our community at times has rallied around to try to provide necessary support to help their neighbors. I remember there were some high school students who early on came forward and said, we're going to help go to the grocery store, because I understand seniors are afraid to go to the grocery store. So how can we help? And it was just volunteers. And that's what West Hartford's really, really good about. Neighbors helping neighbors. And you know what? In the next year, we're going to count on our residents to take a more active role and to find a way that if you have some spare time, find a way that you can help a neighbor. Find a way you can lend a hand. And I'm very proud that we're spending the necessary dollars to create that position of Director of the Social Service, the Assistant Director of Social Services, because it is so, so needed. The committee that I chair, Community and Economic Development, Community Planning and Economic Development, is well served by Dwayne Martin, our Community Development Director and our Town Planner. And this is the thing we get the most comments on, is people say, well, our roads are in bad condition. I'd like to ride my bike over here. People speed too quickly. I don't really like how that building looks. Do you think they can cut the grass? And do you know if they pulled a permit? That really looks ugly here. Why can't we park on the street? These are what I call front lawn services and front lawn issues. So we respond to them all. We plan for them and we respond to them and we take them in, and nobody's not provided an answer. We may not like the answer, but everybody gets an answer. And I think that speaks to the quality of life that we have here in West Hartford. And I would say that quality of life is pretty high and probably can match almost any community in America. Let's not forget that our businesses and our nonprofits are partners with government. We need to support them. The nonprofits, whether it be the Symphony, the Women's Chorale, the Playhouse and Park, the Art League, whatever it may be, the cultural aspects of our community are so significant and reach people in so many different ways that it's so important that we support them and we partner with them because it enriches our lives, and it's so important. And our business community. Nowhere was the response to outdoor dining so as significant as the town of West Hartford. We were leap years ahead of other communities. We already had outdoor dining. We didn't have to pivot and come up with plans on how to do things. Yes, we delivered it a little bit differently by expanding the opportunity so that our business community and our restaurants in particular could be more successful. But West Hartford was already a dining mecca with outdoor dining. And I think that this year, as we go forward and the budget reflects, that we're going to encourage our businesses to do that. And we encourage residents from all out Connecticut to come to West Hartford to support our businesses. And I have 3 more things. This is the first budget that I noticed that we're having generational changes in our staff. We're seeing for the first time where there's a large quantity of employees who are eligible to retire, and they're retiring. They're going to enjoy the rest of their life. So with them, a lot of institutional knowledge departs from our enterprise, from our business operations. And it's so important before these people leave that they show those people who potentially will replace them on how to do the day-to-day functions that they've done so well throughout the years. And our employees, I firmly believe, are second to none. They're dedicated, they're hardworking, they're committed to the town, they're not slackers, and I'm proud to say that every dollar that they earn from this community and the benefits they received are well received and well earned, and they partner and step up to the challenges that face them. During the pandemic, we saw something that I don't think I've ever seen before in my adult life, and that was a different view on social justice issues in America. And West Hartford has always prided itself on being a welcoming community, and I think we are more so than ever. And we don't tolerate hate, we don't tolerate oppression, we don't tolerate bigotry, we don't tolerate things that are, I guess as my mom used to say, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. And if you can live by that motto, you'll be better off. And if you couple that with neighbors helping neighbors, we'll be the community that everyone wants to be. So West Hartford, hold your head up high because we are a welcoming community. We've got the next generation of leaders being our children who don't look at things through the same lens that I did or my parents did, and for that we are better off. And the last thing I'll say, I don't think anyone could have anticipated during this pandemic the changes that we would have experienced, whether it be health, changes in real estate values, changes in how we go about doing our daily lives, okay? Something simple like going to the grocery store or not going to your place of worship or this thing called Zoom or this WebEx thing, okay? For me, which was, as somebody who's not very technologically advanced, had to rely on a 20-year-old to show me how to set it up, the program and everything. And you say to yourself, yeah, we found solutions to get through it. And I think that through collaboration, cooperation, mutual respect, we're able to succeed. So for all those reasons, and what I tried to do is paint a positive picture of our community, because, you know, I'm proud to call West Hartford home. I'm proud to live in this community. And it's because when I sit around the table here, and while I may disagree with somebody's opinion, you do it respectfully and you do it without malice. And I think that's really important. And like I said, I've been sitting here for 15 years. I've missed one meeting in 15 years. And I take this role very seriously. And I read every single document that gets uploaded to the system. And when we used to have paper, I used to read all those as well. And so when I make a decision to vote on something, I understand what reval means. I understand what 75-25 means. I respectfully disagree with my colleagues with their interpretation of what it means. But I think in the end, West Hartford, brightest days, and I say this almost every year that we want, are ahead of us, because we need to be optimistic. We have to look at that glass as half full, because I think that's what gets us up in the morning, and that's what moves us forward. And what really moves us forward during my time on the council is Mayor Cantor and her years of leadership, her vision, her insight, and her willingness to flush things through. And I've totally appreciated serving with Mayor Cantor, whether I was a Republican or a Democrat, because there's been that mutual respect. But what more importantly is there's always been intellectual honesty with any issue that has come before the council. And that's what we expect, and that's what our residents expect from their leaders. So for all these reasons, I will proudly support the budget that has been presented. And thank you for indulging me in my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. So before we go to the roll call vote, I don't want to repeat a lot, and so many good things have been said, but I want to start by first thanking my colleagues on the council for their tremendous commitment throughout this process. It takes a couple of months of our lives that really is committed. We start doing the budget much more, much longer before that and planning for it, but the intensity of going through and meeting with each director, going through each line item, and you each took it very seriously. I really, really appreciate all the effort that you put into it, all the thought. Everybody did raise really heartfelt points that it's a hard process. It's one of the most difficult things we do. And so I really thank you all. My colleagues that are lead committees, really, really grateful for your efforts and all of your creativity and your thinking and questioning, and really, really appreciate all of you very much. West Hartford should be very proud of this group, because everybody is very in it for the right reasons. They care, and they do work hard and bring it seriously. People have left vacations early and whatever. There's tremendous personal sacrifice. So again, thank you all. And thank you very much to our town manager, first town-wide budget, and he kind of got thrown into it, on top of it with revaluation, complicated, and but I want to say that when Mr. Ledwith first looked at this budget, he called me and he said, "This is going to be hard." And what I heard right away from that is I empathize. I understand this, and we're going to get through this together, and I'm your partner. And so that really meant a lot to have that. We're, understanding how things are going to affect different people, and we're going to work hard to get that balance, because it's always a balance of what is the right thing to keep investing in our community and not slip back, but keep moving us forward with balancing the responsibility and the weight of all that, that property tax that funds, largely funds, our residential property taxes largely funding all of what our town is. And I don't think that was ever the way it was structured, but that's what we got. And to Mr. Privatera, for your leadership, your expertise, all that you bring, the many gyrations and the questions we shoot at you when you have those answers and are always there to answer those questions. And at every meeting, and Ms. Newton, Lisa Newton, you've been so incredibly, you're so knowledgeable and provide all the support and also, you know, a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I know you both have given up a lot of your personal lives to take care of us. And to the whole finance department, there's so much work that has been done behind the scenes before it gets to us. And we're tremendously lucky to have such high professionals in these offices and able to answer so many questions. Thank you so much, Ms. Billing-Smith, for that. I know, right? Whew. Okay.
Thank you.
Each director came before us, and I think we all learned something every single time. I think that they come before us, and when they talk about their operations, there's a new challenge, a new opportunity. And so I just want to thank from our library director, Laura Emscher, brand new, to Mr. Dakers, you know, a tremendous responsibility this year with Reval during the pandemic. I mean, let's not forget, this was all done while we were, you know, in a pandemic. Mr. Martin, Dwayne Martin, is new to his position as a community services director with tremendous experience in the engineering department, but doing such a great job of navigating, again, a tremendous amount of challenges. Helen Rubino Turco, as we talked about before, Director of Social and Leisure Services, a tremendous effort all the way through. Everybody, Amy Krause stepping in right before the pandemic, and then, you know, really stepping up. And there's never been a time where I think it's taken more than 60 seconds to get a response from her. Our HR director, Kathleen Lombardi, Jared Morin, IT, who has, I mean, just the pivoting and always so even keeled. I'm always like, Jared, or like, where's your blood pressure? Bob Palmer, who, you know, kept us safe by cleaning up spaces. Especially, he was so focused on our public safety facilities and taking care of us. John Phillips, Public Works, who always was protecting, you know, taking care of his employees, but also sharing with us the challenges that he has. And it's just, he's just such a tremendous leader. And then, of course, our public safety, our police chief and fire chief, who have led with tremendous strength, ethics, and leadership, and so many challenges. Our town clerk, Essie LeBreau, who has we've been such a star throughout the state of Connecticut. And whenever I mention our town clerk, Essie, people I think, beam with pride, as do we. And so thank you for all that you do. And our Corporation Counsel's office, we're so grateful for you. And Gina left, but thank you. I think she's gone. But thank you so much for being there for all of us through all of the, you know, tremendous challenges that we have. Our staff is highly professional, and they deliver the highest quality work to support people. They support people. They support our residents in all different ways. And no day is the same, and the challenges are tremendous. And one of the things that I read when I was preparing for my State of the Town was the only thing that we can expect is uncertainty. And so that's what we have to face. And so the workforce challenges, retirements, again, workforce shortages, inflation, supply chain, all of these things, they have to be managed, and we expect that all of that's going to be worked out by the time it gets to us and our residents. And our leaders do that. I mean, they anticipate what some of the bumps are going to be, and they try to smooth those bumps. And sometimes, they bring those issues to us, and this is what we have to deal with, and I think those are the decisions that we have to make as we're deciding whether to add a position or to provide some resources for a department, because they can't currently meet those challenges. I also want to give a tremendous thanks to Renee McHugh for her remarkable work in communications. It was a really important function throughout this past year, but for the last couple of years for sure. Jerida Reinheimer, who helped us organize and set up many meetings to get this work done. And then uniquely, Kristen Gorski, Economic Development, we all understand how important that is. But Kristen has been in front with business owners, and everywhere I go, I actually just had a meeting, well, before this, when I was a little late, I was at a little conference, an InsurTech conference in Connecticut. CT Advance was there, and she just could not stop talking about Kristen Gorski and how great she is and what a leader in the state. So thank you, Kristen, and Todd Dumais, our town planner, who is really special and really actually handling and juggling so much. We understand that he's under tremendous, a lot of work, has a lot of work ahead of him, and we understand, and just thank you, Todd. And now, our superintendent of schools, Tom Moore, was superintendent of the year during a probably the most challenging time of education in our country, one of them, if not the most challenging time of education in our country, surely the most that I have seen. And my heart's broken that Tom is moving on. I understand from his perspective, new challenges are what he is looking for, and I'm sure he will find them. But we are really, really lucky to have had his leadership throughout his service for the last 27 years, okay. But his leadership during being assistant superintendent and then superintendent throughout, the last decade for sure and more. Tom, I don't know if you're listening, but we are really, really grateful for the human you are, and I know that it hasn't been easy, and he's gone under. I shudder at many of the emails that he's gotten. I know not all people mean well, but sometimes it's being a parent and being concerned about all that you have to deal with, and trying to, in an imperfect world, trying to have that best world for your child. And oftentimes it falls on the superintendent, but you've led us well, and we're better for all that you've done. And it's not just reflected in the education of all the students that have graduated and are doing so well, but also in our home values and all that we have in front of us that we're making decisions on. U.S. News and World Report, our Newsweek national ranking, top 1% of schools. This is tremendous. It is, and when Tom would send these announcements and then he would give comparative information, we're not like any other towns that are in those top schools. We are a truly public school. We are diverse. We have 25% of our student population that is on free and reduced lunch. We are 100th in pupil spending. These defy the odds, and it's because of this leadership of Tom and the assistant superintendents, Paul Vacinis, Andy Morrow, but I will say also because of Rosina Haskins, who has had the strength and the expertise and the professionalism to bring us to a better place. And I just want to thank her from the bottom of my heart, but from all of us, and our town is really grateful for her work. Our Board of Education has led through a really challenging time, and those times are not over. It is a hard time to be an elected leader, but especially in education, because there's so many challenges facing this board, and they make really, really difficult decisions. And so I want to thank Chair Lorna Thomas Farquharson, Deb Poulin, and all of the Vice Chair Deb Poulin, and for their leadership, but all of the Board of Education for serving and they're trying their hardest to do what's right. And so thank them very much. Teachers and staff who kept everything going and did the tremendously hard work of teaching while online and taking care of their own students, but then going that extra mile while kids might have learning loss and anxiety or other issues that they're struggling with. Having our teachers be there for them means the world, and our teachers step up and deliver every day, and we're so lucky to have such tremendous support. My daughter-in-law taught in the school system here for, I think, 5 years, and when she went elsewhere, she said, I didn't appreciate the support that the teachers give each other, and that is really, really important. I think that we understand that layered support, the system that our West Hartford public school systems is. So we have a 2.8% overall budget increase. That's 1.6% for town services, and that is only achieved because of the pension reductions that we had, pension plan. First time in the decades that we had a reduction in our pension contribution. Our Board of Education, largely driven by contracts, and the challenges that they face in not wanting to reduce staff because of the need to meet those children's the children's whatever those challenges are, to have them succeed through. This is the staff we need, and we're not over. We're 100 out of 169 towns. We are not overly staffed. Our administration is lean, and our teachers are in the middle of. I think we're fair, but this is we need everybody to step up and get us through the true recovery phase. Each child that goes through a year doesn't get that year back, and so if you build on that, it becomes accelerated. Capital is something that we're facing some challenges, whether it be ventilation systems in our schools, whether it be stormwater. Those things are facing us, and we're going to have to get through them. And we're going to ask for support, and we're going to continue to find where those grants are and work with the federal government, the state government, to get us what we need to help us with these challenges. So we are having a uniform mill rate, which might change when before the General Assembly leaves session. But right now, our uniform mill rate is 40.68, and with a phase-in of 75% of grand list growth in the first year and 25% of grand list growth in the second year. The mill rate reduction will be 4.1%, and that is, it eases some of that reval growth, of that grand list growth for some residents that had significant growth, and it doesn't ease that grand list, that reduction in value for homes that were around 2% or 3% growth, and those tended to be our larger homes. It also are some of our biggest taxpayers, retail establishments. It did not give them necessarily the full benefit of the mill rate reduction. So we felt this was a way to be fair and balanced. It isn't. It is not a system that really truly is, but we're doing what we can to get through that. And just to put things in context, and I hear we say, the budget, it grows every year. Some years we have a tax increase and some years we don't. And we have had years of no tax increase. Not many, because the drivers that govern us, the drivers that impact us are salaries, and those salaries to keep their people, and their people salaries that tend to go up over time to keep those people, but also because we have senior staff and they might be moving up throughout the organization. So, and we balance that with reducing other things, what we can, and those structural reductions, like the pension plan, really are important. That was our largest budget driver till this year, and so. in 2016 to 2017, we had a 39.51 mill rate, and then we had a 41.04 mill rate, and then we had a 41 mill rate, and then we had a 41.8 mill rate, and then we had a 42.42 mill rate. And so over that 5-year period between revaluations, because once reval hits, the mill rate resets, and so it's a little bit different, we had a 7.5% growth. The consumer price index or inflation would have required us, would have been a 1.13, almost double what that growth was. And so, and that is all of the things that, that was the whole budget. And so, we also pay for gas and supply chain and all of those things that residents pay for as well. And so the average was 1.5% per year below the CPI Consumer Price Index. And the last 3 years during the pandemic, we averaged 1.16% over the last 3 years. So the bottom line is we have tried very, very intentionally, very hard to keep those costs under control. And I don't know of another community that has had that same level of that low level of growth. We've always had a high mill rate. West Hartford has always been a higher cost of living, a high service town with a higher cost of living. When I was a senior in high school, actually in the 70s, our mill rate was in the high 70s. It was 79 point something when I graduated high school. I think we were number one in per pupil spending. And we were not as diverse a community as we are now. We didn't have the vibrant centers that we have now. There was a lot of things that were different. And so I think we are better. And I think that all of this is recognized by people that recognize us as a top place to live. Whether that's Niche Magazine ranking us 1 out of 252 places. I didn't know there were 252 places to live in Connecticut, but that's what they said. And number 1 out of 73 for best suburb for young professionals, and best suburb to live in Connecticut was number 1. So I bet there's different classes of areas to live. But 5th straight year, and that's something we should be proud of. Article in the New York Times that talked about how desirable our community is. Checking those sale prices as of last week or 2 weeks ago with realtors, 93% of homes are sold within 90 days and 95% are sold within the list price. So still those indicators are very, very strong. It is not easy to make the decisions that we make. We have to set the budget. We just can't say this needs to be lower or that needs to be lower, nor can we do something that's out of a negotiation because it's a give and take. It's pension, it's healthcare, it's salaries, it's workman's comp. It's all of those things that go into that agreement and that push and pull. We want to hire the best, we want to attract the best, and we want to keep the best. And so that takes an investment on our part. So we're I think what we've done is a good job, and under difficult circumstances. We have a lot of challenges ahead of us. Number 1 is building on diversity, equity, and inclusion, working on sustainability, and having that commitment in every decision we make, making sure that we have, and Ben says this, Mr. Winograd says this about affordable housing. It's also adding housing stock, not just adding whether it's little A or big A affordable housing, which we do at a slower rate, but we do. But it's putting more, it's supply and demand, putting more supply on the market. Adding to efficiencies, IT, making sure that we are not only meeting our residents' expectations, but exceeding them. And that kiosk, having that kiosk ready to go so people can get their answers right away. We have tremendous potential with our transit-oriented development, so a lot of economic development in every corner of town. Our community center investment, making that truly something we can be, that will serve our residents for the next 50 years. We have a real, I think, legacy on us to make those decisions and to help our community recover and thrive, and to lean on each other and support each other. And there are stresses that are fighting that. Today, I think we all saw some fairly racist flyers that were dumped on a neighborhood. That all hurts, and we all need to stand up against those kinds of things. We have to understand and support our staff as they talk to us about, and our town managers, he shares with us about retirements and potential holes in expertise, and making sure that we're prepared and there's a succession plan. And we, again, have inflation and supply chain challenges like everybody else, and just saying that is a challenge. But there are things that we can do. We can really support the fact that ECS, we should be fighting for full ECS like every other community that should be getting the formula that they get. And hopefully that will happen. If it doesn't happen this session, I hope it does. But asking for that support for school ventilation construction, that is something CCM has been really working hard at, and I hope that they continue to do that, understanding that our kids need that investment, and school construction's one piece, but this has been excluded from the school construction reimbursement, but it shouldn't be. And funding special education. West Hartford has been a place where families that need that extra support for their student that needs those resources have come to West Hartford to receive those services. And special education is 4 times what we spend per pupil, and that can be challenging in community. So fighting for that reimbursement at a lower rate. We know we need to grow the grant list, and we'll do appropriate grant list growth, but we're also going to really continue to message that property tax diversification is essential for municipalities to keep up with the pressures that they have. As Mr. Winograd mentioned, the solid waste management, that's a cost that is driving our budgets, and do we want to spend more and take away from somewhere else to pay for our trash? I don't think we do, nor is it good for our environment, and so there's a real opportunity here. We're going to have to, to be honest, I don't think Connecticut's been a leader in this space. Stonington maybe, Connecticut, but the rest of us really, we need to step up and understand that this is a utility and we need to pay for it. And we have to figure out better ways to do that, and we're on a path. Working with MDC on managing costs on our ad valorem, and talking to them about the ad valorem budget impact, especially having that reval now on our on some lower mod families. And I'm already started this conversation, and we will continue them. And talking to the state about how we do revaluations. Is it, and comparing it to other states, does this make sense? Is it something that could be done in a different way, in a rather than 5-year swings? We used to have 10-year swings. 5-year swings are better, but should this have some indexing component and then adjustments? But we will continue to do the hard work and make that commitment to support our directors and face their challenges, and understand that if we don't hire a person that's going to have to help with payroll because our payroll system is overburdened, that payroll system could crash, and then it's on us. And if we don't do those things, then we are negligent in our duty in doing what's best for our town. And people don't understand all the machinations that go on behind the scenes, and I hope we do, but we're making those very measured investments in our community to continue to keep us a top-rated community, continue to propel us forward, and to hopefully make the decisions that can help us to increase our efficiencies and continue to be as affordable as we can be. So, with that, we will go to the roll call. Mr. Sweeney.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I think we move for adoption, and I was conferring with the council on the resolution providing the phase-in. I should move that for adoption right now.
Okay, yes. Nope, Mr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The earlier motion was to suspend the rules to add that item to the agenda, so it's now added. I would suggest that Mr. Sweeney now move each individual item in order, beginning with 7A, then moving on to 7AA, which is the suspense item that was designated earlier, then moving on to 7B, et cetera.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the ordinance concerning adoptions for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. So we will go to roll call. Ms. LeBron?
Ms. Billings-Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez.
So what specifically are we voting on? I just want to, on the moving.
So this is the appropriation to set the mill rate.
No.
The ordinance concerning appropriations for fiscal year, no, it's not to set the mill rate. It is the
Appropriations,
the appropriations, which is, I don't know if we have a copy of it right here, but it's in your,
which is the spending.
But it's not the, to suspense, right?
This is
not suspense.
This is the
This is not
spending side of the
suspense.
budget.
Okay, so, yes. Take a vote.
these, these are the appropriations, so these are the, how the revenue coming in is going to be,
Got it, but it's not the budget itself, correct?
well,
the
it
budget.
is,
Oh, it is, so
it is.
it'll be, no.
Okay. And so that was a no.
Okay. Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
Mr. Zdanowitz.
No.
It is adopted 6-3.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Then we'll go to 7AA. Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, move adoption of the resolution providing for the 2-year phase-in of the October 1st, 2021 property revaluation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call.
Ms. Billings-Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez,
No.
Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Zdanowitz.
No.
It is adopted 6-3.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. 7B, Mr.
Yes.
Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the ordinance deauthorizing $3 million for projects authorized in the capital improvement program for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023, appropriating funds for projects in the capital improvement program for the fiscal year 2022 through 2023, appropriating funds for the projects in the capital improvement program for the fiscal years 2023 through 2024, and authorizing the issuance of bonds for the town to finance the appropriations and pending issuances of therefore making of the temporary borrowings for such purpose.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Billings-Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Zdanowitz.
Yes.
It is adopted 8-1.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. 7C, Mr. Sweeney.
Yes. Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the ordinance concerning an appropriation to and in the capital improvement fund for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Billings-Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Zdanowitz.
Yes.
It is adopted 8-1.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. And 7D, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the resolution concerning the tax levy on the list of October 1st, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Billings-Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff,
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
No.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Zdanowitz.
No.
It is adopted 7-2.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. With that, we now are on 7E, Mr. Sweeney.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the resolution authorizing the year-end budgetary transfers.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. We did not discuss this, so I don't know if there's any comments or.
You can discuss it after the second
Did you did a motion?
Second.
Made and
seconded?
seconded. You can make a discussion.
We can discuss it, yep. I don't know if, so this is a resolution authorizing year-end budgetary transfers. Want to just, Mr. Ledwith?
Through you, Madam Mayor, this resolution will allow the magic of our finance department to make their appropriate transfers within the current fiscal year budget at the end of this year, over the next 6 weeks.
This just authorizes them to do
It
it.
does.
That does not authorize any specific amounts.
It does not.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments? All right, then we go to roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Ms. Billingsmith,
Yes.
Ms. Blanks,
Yes.
Ms. Cantor,
Yes.
Mr. Cortez,
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff.
Yes.
Ms. Fay,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Winograd,
Yes.
and Mr. Zdanowitz.
Yes.
It is adopted 9-0.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Okay, now we are to the town manager's report. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not have a report for the council this evening, but happy to answer any questions that you may have. I'll be back
Okay.
next 2 weeks from now.
Second.
All right, any questions from Mr. Ledwith? No. All right, Mr. Dodge, any Corporation Council, anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam
Congratulations to the town manager on the adoption of his first budget, and also to all the rest of you for the hard work that I know you all put into it. I'm pleased to report that I have no formal report, and we will not require a executive session this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. Any questions for Corporation Council? Okay, seeing none, I just have a few announcements. Artists for Ukraine online fundraiser led by West Hartford Art League raised $10,000 through the sale of art donated by local artists. Money was donated to the Ukrainian National Home to help fund the transport of their next shipment of donated goods to Poland. 96 local artists donated 140 small works depicting either sunflower, Ukraine's national flower, or a composition in blue and yellow, the colors of Ukraine's flag. Congratulations to Small Business Award recipients for 2022, two West Hartford businesses. Congratulations to Derek Azovsky of Orms, who received the Financial Champion Award, and Alexandra Lazowski of Bear Life, who received the Micro Enterprise of the Year Award. Businesses encouraged to participate in community job and resource fair, and lots of, obviously, job losses and hiring challenges, and to help address these hardships, Town of West Hartford and the West Hartford Chamber are holding this fair on Wednesday, May 25th, from 4 to 8 p.m. at Elmwood Community Center. All industries are encouraged to participate as we expect a diverse set of, of job seekers to attend. Vendor space is free but limited. Registration is required by emailing, I'm not going to say the email. Okay. Survey feedback on housing opportunities. This is due April 30th, and it's on a Survey Monkey. It is on the website, so please, or you can, questions or written comments should be addressed to Town Planner Todd Dumais. North Main Street Road Diet Meeting will take place April 28th at 6:30 p.m. In Town Hall Auditorium with the consultant VHB, and they'll do a second, this is the second public information meeting on this Thursday. And that's that. Sign up for Memorial Day Parade. The beloved Memorial Day Parade returns after 2 years on May 30th, 10 a.m. Organizations and veterans interested in marching should visit the parade website to sign up, or email Renee McHugh. Fire Department Award Program will recognize 31 fire department employees, 1 citizen, and the Health District Director for their exemplary actions from 2018 to 2021 at an award program on Monday, May 2nd at 1:30 in Town Hall Auditorium. And then I just also want to give a shout out to, we had Mr. Winograd came on Sunday morning, 9 o'clock. We marked the first Nepal Day, which was a really wonderful celebration, and the pageantry was beautiful, and it was just really nice to be a part of that. And I look forward to the second one. Events: Health and Wellness Vendor Fair, April 26th at Blueback Square. WeHa Health and 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Isham Road and Webster Walk. And I don't know, Isham and Isham, I change all the time. I don't know what's right. Attendees will receive information from health and wellness organizations, see demonstrations, chat with local experts, and electric mix of wellness practitioners. Rain date is Thursday, April 28th. Passing the torch, the 50th anniversary of Title IX, April 27th. I will be accompanying the superintendent of schools, Tom Moore, as co-host, and celebrating this 50th anniversary of the establishment of girls' sports in West Hartford, as well as marking the 50th anniversary of the passage of Title IX of the Education Amendment Act of 1972. It will be at Hall High, 6:30 to 8:30. This will recognize players, coaches, and parents who lobbied the West Hartford Board of Education to establish the first official girls' sports program. A keynote address focused on the history and future of Title IX will be given by Dr. Carissa Nyhoff, Chief Executive Officer of the National Federation of High School Associations. Commemorative memorabilia will be on display. I think my jacket will be, no, I'm teasing. And a multimedia presentation of student work, music, photographs, and stories will be highlight the achievements of West Hartford women and girls. And on the playing fields and their impact sports has had on their professional lives. Illuminating Conversations, April 27th, is a webinar, how books can help us talk about identity, diversity, and bias. This free webinar runs 4 to 5 p.m. and is designed for parents, guardians, caregivers, and educators of elementary and middle school students. Anyone wishing to attend or receive the recording can register, and this is also on the website, so it's really long. I don't want to say it. Wellness Resource Fair and National Take Back Day, as we talked about in the proclamation, April 30th. Charter Oak International Academy at 425 Oakwood Avenue, 11:30 to 1:30. Come and connect with resources focused on mental health, substance abuse, gambling prevention, and intervention and treatment. And then the Take Back program will also be, so the Take Back program will be from 10 to 2. The fair will be from 11:30 to 1:30. Sorry about that. And then suicide prevention training as well will be available, and Narcan administration training. Children's Charity Ball, April 30th. The Bridge will hold at this ball at Hartford Golf Club, includes a reception, silent auction. Tickets are $200 a person and are available at the Bridge website. Comedy Night, April 30th, 90 minutes of laughs at Playhouse on Park. Tickets are $17.50. All seats are reserved. For more information, look at the Playhouse on Park website. Amazing Adventures of Dr. Wonderful and Her Dog, also at Playhouse on Park now through May 1st. The Mystery Science musical takes young audiences through the solar system. Webster War of Words on May 7th. Museum Signature Fundraiser, online game show for word lovers, and Merriam-Webster Dictionary's editor-at-large, Peter Sokolowski, will moderate this battle of words between two teams of celebrity contestants, and you will get to play along for a chance of prizes. The online auction is open for bids. For more information, look on the website. Rotary's 10th annual Vines of May. It's usually Vines of March, but it's Vines of May this year. And will take place on Saturday, May 14th at 7 p.m. And the Rotary does all different kinds of support and volunteer services, and tickets are $75 and available on their website. You will also see a link to the website. And Encore is their fundraiser for Playhouse and Park, also on May 14th, and this will feature LaTanya Farrell and her band, and will take place at the Clara Story Ballroom at Hilliard Mills in Manchester. All proceeds from this entertaining evening will be dedicated to keeping professional live theater on stage at Playhouse on Park. The tickets are $200 per person and $150 for young professionals. Also, you can go to the Playhouse on Park website. Are there any other announcements? Mr. Cortez.
West Hartford United Methodist Church is wrapping up their diaper drive. It went all month long, so Sunday will be the last day, even though that is May 1st. And anything that we're collecting diapers, feminine hygiene products, toothpaste, anything of that nature, and it comes right back to the town. So to the food pantry and social services.
Thank you so much for your work on that. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you. This is a personal, had the misfortune of getting to observe our fire department in action. We had a fire on my street, neighbors across the street from me. The house is pretty much a loss, I think. And the fire department did a fantastic job. It was an electrical fire. The residents got out when it was home, but there were a couple cats left in who the fire department did go in and rescue them. But the son of one of my neighbors has put up a GoFundMe page. I'm looking for some help. I did share it on my own Facebook page if anybody wants to see. But certainly any contributions would be appreciated for the family.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Yeah, that was really tragic. Thank God no one was hurt. So, and a big special thank you to our firefighters for their incredible work. Mr. Davidoff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a member of the Board of Directors for the West Hartford Symphony Orchestra, I'd like to remind the community that the tickets for the Pops concert for May the 21st at 8 p.m. at the Roberts Theater at Kingswood Oxford School will take place. And according to the recent Facebook post, they all can't wait to see you at the final concert of the year. And the symphony will bring you some of their favorite Broadway melodies. So the symphony's starting to get back into swing here, and it can really use our community support to show that we're a community that really does support the arts.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff, and thank you for your service on the board. Anything else? All right. With that, Mr. Sweeney, last item.
Madam Mayor, move adjournment, sir.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any objection? No objection. We are adjourned. Thank you. Good night.
Are we putting the efficiency award behind you too? Yeah. I say 20 minutes.